Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Tuesday night, and welcome to another last transmission. How you doing, Paul?
Okay, thanks, mate. Had a great day, really busy, productive, spoke to some amazing people. And how about yourself?
What do you think I've been doing?
Editing. Or something like that.
Yeah, more work, yeah, but yeah, we just work. Just the standard stuff. So, and you've taken to putting your name on your T-shirt this week.
Oh, it's just the girls buy me T-shirts, don't they? So yeah, they got me this. I needed to put a T-shirt. It's been a hot day. A couple of changes of clothes. So yeah, we've got that, and they've got me one with Abbey Road, aliens walking across as well. There's that one somewhere. So all sorts of. They know what I like. Well, they don't really, because I don't buy these. I don't buy things with my name on usually, but it's there, and we've got it on, and. Let's have a look. We're going on for 100 people in chat already, and it's better every week. Thanks for the support, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
tonight.
Absolutely right, man. We're always thankful, and only a few days off Awakening, Paul.
Yeah, that should be good. That's on Saturday, and I think they're sold out. So even better for Steve, Barry, and is it Camilla who's organised this? So yeah, are you going, Chris?
I don't know. I messaged Steve. I'm just waiting for a reply from him because he wanted just to see if he had any merch that we're going to sell. And I always do. And in fact, I dug one old last transmission T-shirts out.
Yeah.
So yeah, just waiting for a reply off Steve. Really. So in the chat, guys, who's going? Just message you. Who's going to Oldham on Saturday to see Paul and the rest of the crew. So yeah, it should be. Look, I think it's. What is it? One of a few smaller events this time around. I know OLM have got one in. Is it September?
I don't know what date it is. I haven't really looked. I know Les were on about it other day, but I haven't looked.
Yeah, I think people enjoy it getting together. So I think they've missed that in the last 12 months for sure. So I think whatever you make the conference, you're going to definitely enjoy each other's company. Anyway.
We'll have to do one back end of year, September, and be quite fun. Let's have a look. Let's just see who's in chat. Sober Carper, Tino, Galba, Karen Beerman, or Beerman, apologies. I said beer because I like beer so much, Karen. Sorry. Steve T, Scaldan, Jack, Steve Collin, Mag Sue. Let's have a look. Dragonborn, good to see you. Mark Thompson. And that's just to name a few, because obviously Stargazer Eternal, Linny's in. I did see Linny's name earlier. I can't see it now, so I'm assuming Mrs. Linny's in. Mia Girl, Pete will be watching, and let's just get on with it, Chris, because I always love talking to Mick. Regardless, we have some great conversations about the unexplained. He's got a really inquiring mind, and he looks at it from a really sort of analytical point of view. He don't just believe in anything. Do you know what I mean? Which is good.
Absolutely not, and he's a massive he's like me and you, big fans of the genre, same as everybody here. So let's bring Mick in and let's talk about everything and nothing. How you doing, mate?
Hi guys.
Yeah, brilliant. Good to see you, mate. And how's life been treating you? Okay?
Yeah, good. Trying to stay nice and cool at the moment. I'm not complaining though.
No, absolutely. And obviously, we're here and we talk the unexplained, and it's something that's close to your heart. Probably comes second to music, I think, but it's there, isn't it? It's up there with everything. And what do you think at current state of, well, let's say ufology, unexplained phenomena, Mick? Do you think that we're going in the right direction?
Well, obviously, there's been a lot of activity on the UFO front. I like to use the term UFO. I can't do the UAP thing. There's a lot of activity on that front, particularly with like whistleblowers. Podcasts like yourselves, Jesse Michaels, Area 52, that are really, really good at putting the genre out to the public and doing it in a really good way.
Yeah.
I mean, at the moment, it's very healthy. So, yeah, it's exciting times.
It's good, isn't it? I mean, I don't know what you'll think, Chris, but I don't see as much infighting. Everybody seems to be accepting of the fact that we none of us could be right, and everybody's sort of in with a shout with whatever particular part of the unexplained you kind of adhere to. There's the possibility that there's a little grain of it in everything that we're looking at.
Yeah, I've seen a bit of flip flopping. Have you not noticed that, Mick? In this, it went from being absolute 100% threat. This is a threat with the voice of Greer usually in the background, and now there seems to be a bit of a switch. Have you noticed that?
Well, it's weird that you say that, because I was watching a thing today. I'm going to jump straight into it now. So it was Danny Sheehan, who's that famous lawyer in the States. He's covered many topics within the UFO genre, and he referred to the Skywatchers program, and he cast some serious doubt on what those guys are doing. Basically, they were using a technology they developed that they called the dog whistle to lure in UFOs alongside psionics assets, and then try and down them with the idea of sort of gaining the technology that obviously would be on board one of these crafts, but because obviously they're backed by private backers. And he said ethically it's not right to do something like that. And I just thought, well, it's a real human thing to do.
Yeah,
to actually think like that, and it was quite refreshing. Yeah. So to answer your question, Chris, yeah, that there's a lot in the zeitgeist now, which is coming to the forefront, and it's making people think. People who probably wouldn't even go near the subject itself.
Did you? Did they? I think I saw that in some of that interview, not all of it. Did they disclose anything about this dog whistle technology? Did they say anything about it at all?
No. I think it's something they developed when they were in the program, where they were obviously part of this black project they were involved with, and they took it with them. They've now put a team together, a guy called Jake Barber, who was a crash retrieval pilot and helicopter. And he's put this team together consisting of various psionics assets where people obviously meditate and try and draw them in naturally. And they developed this program, which, like I said, they call it the dog whistle, that calls these craft in. And they've like kind of categorized, I think it's 8 or 9 different craft. Me and Paul were talking about it before.
Yeah.
I question that. But I mean, listen, I'm no expert, but I go down many rabbit holes with this subject, and it's, I don't know, they can't, whether or not they're trying to make it something bigger than it really is, and I don't know. It's a strange one how they can do that.
Is this the? I mean, I don't watch many of them, so is this the one where the guy's saying that he can call in? They ask him, and I can call one in at any time. He said, "When can you do this?" And I can call. But I mean, it sounds a bit like I'm putting them down. But where is that evidence then on based on what we've seen?
Well, I'll be totally honest. The evidence that you guys have shown me, and I've been privy to a lot of stuff that the public hasn't seen, that you guys have shown me. I think what you guys are filming up there weekly at Bempton kind of blows what they're doing out the water, and yet they've got all their backing, they've got the finance. Sorry,
mate, go on. Sorry, go on.
You always say, Paul, location is key. And I think you're at ground zero. I think whether or not they're not in the right place, or they have some sort of inside knowledge where the hot spot is, I've no idea. But when you see your evidence, it's very, very, very compelling.
I think then that, maybe, and I'm talking about for truth proof as well, and for last transmission, I ought to put, Chris has seen it, you've seen it, we ought to put his money where his mouth is. We've put bits up, and it's me that I'm not pushing it. I think if I pushed this enough, people would see that the actual footage. I mean, Linny knows this. I mean, he's probably filmed one of the most convincing, I don't know what it is. You've seen it. Objects that imaginable, this sphere that you can see on thermal.
I've said it to you before. That is probably one of the best pieces of footage I've ever seen.
Yeah,
but it's just weird, but compelling, exciting. It's everything. And when you actually see the original footage, and when you zoom in and you enhance it a little bit, you could see all these different things going on inside what this object is.
There's so much energy in it. Like Chris has just put the word out. Who's going to the conference on Saturday, so you might get to see some of that footage as well as other footage. But I think it's time. I shouldn't just talk about it. We should, even if the frame captures, because I watched the Skywatcher and they've got evidence of this, on a blue sky, this, like, I don't know, fuzzy white orb, and I must have, horrible to say it, but I just think it's very weak evidence. And I know we've got some incredible evidence, so I think it's time we start and show that what we've actually captured. And for somebody with such an high budget, what are they filming it on? A potato? Do you know what I mean? It's just, what are they filming it on? We've got next to nothing money wise. It's a big deal for me if I spend a couple of grand on a camera. It really is. But we've got high budgets here, investing a lot of time and a lot of effort, and the clarity of the images aren't brilliant. I'm probably going to get a bit of flack for this, but that's just how I feel.
I don't think you will, mate. From what I can tell, I think there's a pretty even split about what people think about this. But I think those on our side of the fence that are looking at this, like, going, well, it's inconclusive at best, this stuff, and where is all the money going, and why are your psionic assets lying on a mattress covered in a sleeping bag? What are they actually doing? Where is there evidence that these guys are not just asleep and they're not doing anything? As far as I could tell, I mean, it seems to me to be, look, I'm all for making a TV show, and I understand these days you've got to put an element of drama in there. I get that. I understand that. That's what the audience want. And if that's what it is, cool. But don't play it straight, and they're playing it dead straight. I'm not saying that those psionic assets don't exist. I'm not saying that. Point being is, if you're going to introduce them as a key part of the show, and then the one shot you get of him is lying on a mattress covered up, lying on this camp bed covered up in a sleeping bag and a blindfold, and then nothing. You show all these craft, but you never once associate it to the psionic asset. To me, it just seems like a bit of spin, doesn't it? What do you think, mate?
Well, I've looked into it a little bit. I know the whole sleeping bag mattress blindfold. You go into like a meditating state, and that's it. It's like your subconscious calls these things in. I mean, I honestly, mate, I don't know. It's so new to me. I've literally just scratched the surface of trying to get my head around what this is. If we learn more from it, brilliant. I'm all for it. I'm not really into the idea of downing these craft.
No, I would agree.
It's just, it doesn't.
But don't you think, Mick, that's kind of wishful thinking? We're going to down these craft.
Well, if you go, I mean, to refer to another podcast, if you go to the Joe Rogan Experience, Howard Puthoff was on there recently, and he stated that the US was in possession of over 10 craft.
Wow.
Now, he did suggest that some of these craft were gifted. They were actually placed there. So when you hear these crash retrievals, it might not be the case in many of them. These crafts were gifted. So whether or not these entities picked a certain location, which was agreed, they went there and they retrieved the craft in return for, information or technology or whatever. I know we spoke about some of the stuff with these black triangles before. It makes you think what they actually gain from this technology and how they're using it for man-made craft.
Absolutely. And we're not here to talk about Ummanby, but we talked about Ummanby on last transmission the other day with Nick, one of witnesses, and I learned something from there, from people contacting me afterwards with things I'd not thought about, which were just in plain sight, really. When you think about it, because all three witnesses talked about hearing a helicopter. They weren't sure if it were a hum or a helicopter, but it makes sense if these were helicopters, that's how the troops arrived, the military personnel. And then somebody's been in touch with me who claims to have been involved in not that, but these operations since, which is interesting. Do you see? And just filled a few more little gaps in. So, it's building a bigger picture.
Seems a bit odd to me that Jake Barber has gone from having this amazing experience with a loving entity energy, he said, to now he's bringing the craft down. That just doesn't add up, does it?
I'm on the same page, Chris. You know, what he said, he had that intermind connection with the craft, and he would get really emotional, and it was a beautiful experience. And, you know, and then what you're going to do, you're going to apprehend these aliens.
Is that what he said, intermind connection? Well,
that's what he had with this craft. The second.
Oh, wow. Just that I wrote that in Truth Proof 1. That was.
Maybe that's where I got it from.
All right. But interesting. I don't mind.
He had some connection with the second craft that he retrieved from the range. Can
I just say here, though, people in chat, I mean, you know, we're well over 100 people now. If you have any questions for Chris, Mick, myself, put them in capitals, please, and we'll definitely get to the questions. But sorry about cutting through.
Just thoughts about that, about these exercises, about Skywatcher. If you don't know what Skywatcher is, just check out the YouTube channel. It's just called Skywatcher. And now, Mick, do you want to talk about what Jeremy Corbell's up to in the new whistleblower? That Michael, is it called Michael Brown? Did you say?
No, there's a guy called Matthew Brown.
Matthew Brown, that's it.
Yeah, he was the guy that basically brought Immaculate Constellation to the public. He worked at the Pentagon. It seems like a really genuine stand-up guy. I don't really know too much about the story, but what I've gained from what I do know is that he was part of a group that was basically filing different like operations that were on this secure internet connection. It's a network that they've got at the Pentagon, and he stumbled across this this file that said what was it called? Some war games. Schreiber, the Schreiber war games, which it wasn't classified. So he went onto it, and then the first slide was Lou Elizondo, the guy you referred to before, Paul.
Yeah.
And then it went on to describe what Immaculate Constellation was, which basically it was information sourcing on UFOs around the world. And then there was because it wasn't classified, it as a it's SAP. I don't know what that stands for now.
Special access program, is it?
A special access program. That's it. He would not normally have access to it, so straight away he sort of red flagged it, and then carried on reading. I think it was something like 18 slides or 18 pages, and one of the slides was a photograph that was in the Pacific Ocean, and it was a photograph of a number of Russian vessels gathered together, and above all the vessels was a giant black triangle, and it was a colour photograph, and the photograph was actually taken from kind of water level, so whatever took the photograph was quite close to what was going on, and it wasn't, by all accounts, discovered because the vessels looked like they were carrying on regardlessly to what was going on. So that was quite strange, and it kind of like expanding on a little bit about Arrow. Is it Kirkpatrick, Chris? I can't. Sean Kirkpatrick. That's it. About how he kind of distorted all the information he was given to Congress. I've not really gone into it much more than that, but it was just another interesting thing. And I think Jeremy, he's brilliant at what he does, and him and George are really digging deep. And he's a real thorn in the side for the US sort of black projects. He's like trying to out all these people, and it is to be commended, really.
But in general, where do you think we are? Do you have? I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but do you have any hope for any real disclosure?
Well, apparently, I'll say this loosely, but apparently there's something big coming according to Trump, and that was something he said over the last day or so. But that could mean anything. I mean, he kind of poo-pooed the whole drone thing as soon as, like, you know, the first sort of announcement in office, the official sort of engagement with the press. And that was quite disappointing.
And when you say big, do you mean UFO related?
Yeah, I mean that's what I've heard, but whether or not it's directly involved with that or something else, or it could be another space race thing, or it could be something else. You don't know with him.
No.
So,
yeah, the way I saw that, the way he worded it, it sort of, he called it people. Did he say this subject? Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people have sort of alluded to the fact, and that's what it sounded like to me. But like you say, you never know with Trump, do you? You don't know what you're going to get.
No.
I mean, it would be interesting, but I just don't see. Look, what's the worst that can happen at the end of the day? I suppose any news is any good news in the subject is great. It could say. You could say it's well worth all the work that all these guys have been doing for decades and decades.
If it points us in closer to the truth, whatever that truth might be. Just before we move away from the CE5 and things like that, because somebody mentioned Greer, I think it was you, Mick. Do you think that we've had this, if we call it the protocol, we've had this for hundreds and hundreds of years with Sanskrit and mantras and chants, and do you think that we're just dressing these new techniques of trying to contact with them up with other names? We've already had these things for hundreds of years. Do you think there's anything new, really?
Yeah, I mean, there might be some truth in that. I mean, with say like deep meditation, interdimensional kind of beings. If there's quite a lot of talk recently about how these craft come here and then from another dimension, you could attribute it to something like that. I think for many, many years, people have been aware, especially like tribal people, about these people from the stars.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's been referred to going back millennium. So it's hard to say if that is the real root of it, but I definitely think there is something there. And if you go by what we were talking about before about the psionics assets and the meditation, maybe that is something they've kind of tapped into
and perfected or honed a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I know me and Paul were talking earlier in the week about the different situations where they think these assets have been used to bring down these craft. I don't know. I mean, you hear one story and then the next week it's refuted. So it's hard to actually put your finger on it. But I mean, I do think there's some truth in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, then, Chris, where are we going next?
Well, I don't know. Have we got any questions, Ray? Well, let's get any questions out of the way just before we change subjects. Any questions?
We have got. We'll do that in a minute.
Yeah. Here's one to get rid of. Chris, what's going on with David Eckhart? Is that the guy? Yeah. Are you familiar with you guys with David Eckhart?
I know the name. And am I wrong? Is he something to do with photography?
No. He's the guy from, yeah, his case was fair. His infamous case on fact or fakes. He's the guy that filmed the alien in his house.
Okay, all right.
And he's had some reptilian experiences, all sorts of weird stuff. Anyway, he's disappeared. I've not heard from him personally. So who knows?
Have you been in contact with him, Chris?
Yeah, I've been in contact with him. Yeah, he's in the film. He's in the second reptilian film. So
right, okay. I know Bob's had him on radio show. That's how I knew the name.
Yeah, he's known, and what's he called? Lon Strickler were doing a lot of work with him at one time. I think people I've seen some messages. I've had some messages on TikTok asking, where he is and stuff. And really, I don't know him well enough to know. Look, you can't read too much into things. I think with the state of the world and life at the minute, if someone wants a break from the internet, who could blame them?
Yeah, it could be as simple as that. Yeah, it just needs to recharge the batteries, and let's hope that's all it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I hope he's all right. Yeah,
I thought he was the guy that took the photographs and got the weird images in the photographs. But...
yeah, that's him.
All right, well, photography.
Yeah.
He is to do with
through water. Yeah, to slow the photons down. Yeah, there's all sorts of weird stuff. Yeah. So next question, Lorraine, please.
And I'll tell you what, we'll go through that little bit of footage that me and Mick got on the cliff tops as well, with the EMF meter. If
we can do that next if you want. Just a comment from Draco. It's ridiculous to think that craft with advanced defense capabilities can be downed by hippies. If the craft are going down, then the aliens have a reason for allowing this deception to happen. Well, look, I mean, to me, these are where the red flags are, aren't they? This is where, you know, if you're going to put this in front of the public and ask them to buy into this, what is in its conception a relatively simple thing to do that potentially anybody could do. I don't know. I find it very difficult to believe that an advanced civilization would fall for such crude methods. I don't know.
So we're bringing them down with power of our mind, are we?
They're actually being brought in by the power of your mind, or the dog whistle, as they call it. They're actually being down by an EMP.
I see. Okay.
So that's and weirdly enough, Stephen Graham mentioned something like this a long time ago. And apparently that's what these guys are using at Skywatcher.
I can believe that they've done it. I certainly can believe that they did it, even if we talk about Roswell, whether they did that by accident or whatever they did, or some of these failed experiments that they were doing. But surely an advanced race would cotton on real quick to that, and there would be preventative measures put in place, I would have thought, but who knows? Galga, don't hang your hat on what Trump says. Well, I don't think you can hang your hat on what anybody says. You know, Trump's just one of them, really.
What about that photograph that Lou, come on, help me with his surname, Elizondo, and he produced this photograph that was supposed to be really good photographic evidence, and it turned out. Do you think that he's deliberately being played? Do you think that were a plant to discredit him? Or was he playing the world, hoping nobody would
apparently it was a private pilot that gave him the photograph.
Right.
And the photograph wasn't confirmed by anyone. And the reason he showed, this is what I've heard. I don't know if it's 100% pinned on. And apparently he's been an advocate of allowing private pilots to disclose what they've seen.
I see.
And there's no channel for them to do that, apparently in the States. So I believe that's why he did it. But then, as it Mick West, he straight away he outed it, saying no, it's fake.
It'd be a terrible blow. It
was an optical illusion, I should say.
Absolutely terrible. Go on, Chris.
Go on, Paul. Sorry.
No, just say it's a terrible blow if the guy's on the level and he's fell for that, because you kind of only.
It could be the case, Paul. That could be it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think just before we move on, then we're going to get onto the EMF and that footage that you guys filmed up on the cliff tops, aren't we? So before we move to that, just something I heard yesterday about it might have been Corbell or George Knapp, and it's in relation to a new Pentagon witness that mentioned the return of the Anunnaki. Have you heard anything about that, Mick?
No. I've not.
There's some document that's come directly from the Pentagon that says the word Anunnaki, and that they are going to return. And now they're alluding that this big 2027 thing is the return of these guys, and it's all because the Earth is meant to suffer some huge cataclysm again, and that these guys are here to take only certain people off the planet. Now, again, how much you can read into this, I think it's a lot of nonsense for a start. But I'm not surprised that the words come up, because it's almost like, if you think about it, Mick, I know I'm saying Mick because you look at all the weird shit that I look at over the years. You've probably looked at all different sorts of stuff. And it seems to me that a lot of the buzzwords now are referencing things, key things that have been knocking about for like 30 years, 40 years. Do you know what I mean?
100%. And I've noticed this, and I think this is the disclosure of the recent CIA files where the remote viewers found the Ark of the Covenant. I don't know if you remember. Yeah. And they keep bringing up things that are sort of well established in the public as the weird and the woo. And they're bringing up the Anunnaki, they're bringing up the Ark of the Covenant, the Shroud of Turin. There's a huge interest in that as well recently. And it is whether or not it's the press or whoever controls what's going on, kind of sort of generating these things to get the interest going again in the world.
What do you think the interest does then if they're reviving these ancient artifacts? Do you think the interest is purely to create interest and publicity, or is it to change our mood and lift our mood and belief system?
Maybe it is to desensitize ourselves from, oh, that's a bit weird, or that's, if once people start doing a little bit more research, and oh yeah, I remember someone talking about the Ark of the Covenant, or the Anunnaki, or all these different things that people keep bringing up, and then when they do hit us with something else, it's not so much of a shock to the system. I don't know.
No.
I also think that if it's another way of injecting, if you can inject a bit of history, to the public or to the uninformed public who have just got a toe in this genre, it kind of feels true, and it's a bit of a buzzword, and it's like Paul said, it's just it raises an eyebrow of people who potentially might not have looked at it.
Some of these things they're talking about and reviving, should we say, have been in films, haven't they? Blockbuster films talking about the Ark of the Covenant and things. So if there's a hint that there could be some truth to this, I suppose you'd look into it, wouldn't you? Because you enjoyed that film. It might be as simplistic as that. But we're definitely being guided and driven in a certain direction, I think, now, and more towards acceptance that there is a reality to all of what we're talking about today.
Well, that mention of the Anunnaki, they also in the guy talking about it, I don't think it's in the document, but the guy talking about it then said, "Is this the rapture?" Which then pulls in the Christian crowd, and it's just like, another buzzword. It's like just more, not conflict, but do you know what I mean by that? It's there's always got to be that.
It links it for people, Chris. You're right, because you at the beginning you said, "Have you seen this document that's been that's been discovered, and the name the Anunnaki, and they're going to take certain people off the planet?" And then you've just mentioned kind of the buzzwords and the ascension, the rapture, and when you look at the paintings, the Renaissance paintings and what have you, and you can see people rising up into the sky where people have done scenes of the rapture, and we're probably dealing with all that kind of thing. I mean, they are trying to connect with different types of people and different mindsets and belief systems.
Yeah, true. I mean, maybe there is a prophecy. Maybe there is. I wouldn't be surprised if there is. There's something written in the past can tell the future. It wouldn't be the first time, would it? So
no. I think a lot to do with it as well is people like yourself and these podcasters now that have really taken over sort of media and how to sort of reach the public. They have like huge followings. And this subject has always been an interest for a lot of people. And I think when it's presented in the correct way, it really resonates with a lot more people than sort of the general news and your normal media channels. So, like YouTube and podcasting is such a big platform now to sort of reach people.
And you're right, Mick, because there will be people out there, obviously in the privacy of their own home, watching these channels, watching podcasts, all sorts of live streams, and they've got access to something that they would have loved to have talked about and looked at, but don't have the opportunity in public life. If you know what I mean,
or Paul, it would have been censored in some way or form. So you can actually find what you're looking for.
Yeah, you make a good point.
Right, so we'll move on, shall we? We want to talk about what's going on a little bit, because Mick's been up to Bempton many times with you, hasn't he, Paul? So,
and he's coming up again, aren't you? Later this year?
In September with my sister, and she should be in the chat today.
Do you want to preface this, Paul, before I put the video up?
Well, yeah, I think me and Mick can, because we go up there and we've tried all sorts. I mean, Mick's brought audio equipment, and we've had chants going in thick mist and all sorts of things, because we're not averse, because the Gregorian chant, is that how you pronounce it?
No, it wasn't. It was a Aramaic or Hebrew chant that they actually used on Skinwalker Ranch to invoke this kind of I don't know, energy or whatever you would like to call it. and I was stood in the middle of a field
in the thick fog,
Paul behind me, with thick mist on the ground, with a speaker in the air, with this thing on a loop, just playing and playing. We didn't see anything.
Nothing happened. No. But you know, so what I'm saying is, we're not so closed down when we've talked about these different protocols that I would not try them. I mean, it's not a case of my mind's made up, so I'm not going to try these things. If there's a potential for something to work, we'll have a go. Yeah. But on this occasion, we had an EMF meter, pretty simplistic one. Is it K2? I'm not certain what they call it actually, but we had an EMF meter. I was stood away from Mick so that any electrical interference wouldn't interfere with the EMF meter. There's nothing to the right-hand side except sheer cliffs in the North Sea. That's right, Mick, isn't it? There's well, Chris knows this as well, and probably some people in chat. You've got fields to the right-hand side, no power lines, no underground cables, and people are saying, can you say that for sure? You're literally in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing. And, well, what happened, Mick?
Well, we got the meter out, and straight away it started acting weird. The only thing that's there, brambles and a fence. There's literally nothing there. So I said to Paul, start asking some questions. Now, we were quite near an area which we refer to as the Werewolf Gate.
Yeah.
So where the two para guys saw this werewolf. Well, that's what they say. That's
what they allegedly say, and they've seen something unusual. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were kind of in that area. So I actually said to Paul, right, I think you were about 6 or 8 foot away. I said, start asking some questions. So I put the torch on you and I put the camera on you, and off you went. And then it was responded.
And it was responding. I mean, that's the strongest response I've ever had using an EMF meter. We don't use a spirit box or anything like that, but we just thought we'd take that up and try it. And often, Mick, and I think you know this anyway, but if I'm up there with Linny or Bob Brown's up there, we'll put the EMF meters on and just leave them away from everybody, and you get not so much responses, but they're reacting and they're doing things they shouldn't be doing because there's nothing there. But this almost seemed to be answering questions. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah. Okay, shall I put it up? Yep, I'll put it on there.
Yeah, questions, please, in caps for us all. Do you watch everybody who comes to the cliff tops? Give us a stronger response. Can you stop? Can you start again? And there's a little bit more to that. I could hear music coming in, so we didn't get that question in. But
yeah, I didn't put it on because I didn't want a copyright strike.
All right, right, okay, yeah. So interesting, and
it was interesting, and there's a lot more to that film. And we were filming for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and we were actually walking along the fence line, so it wasn't like as you see in the film where Paul stood in like static in one shot. We travelled up the fence line to where the Werewolf Gate is. We actually went to the spot where the guys saw the werewolf stood there.
Yeah.
We actually stood on that bit, and I did say to Paul, right, at one point I actually put my phone on the EMF reader, and it didn't do anything, absolutely nothing. It was just a really surreal. And then as quickly as it did that, it just wouldn't respond again, and that was it. It finished.
And you know something, Mick and Chris, we've noted and Linny, if he's in chat, he'll know this. There's a dark humour that whatever this is up there likes, because, like I've said, we'll put them. Sometimes I'll put them on a monopod in a field, and you can just see one green light, and then we'll go, oh, it's off. And you obviously you're not up there like choir boys just standing somber. You're a group of people. You're having a laugh. You know, sometimes it's not all serious, but you might get on about something that's a little bit dark humor.
Yeah.
And one of us will go, hey, look at it, and they're off.
Yeah.
And is it just coincidence? I couldn't see coincidence with those questions that you were asking.
One thing I've noticed as well, when you're ignoring it, and say because a group of guys up there, we're having some banter between us all, and like Paul said, we have a bit of a laugh. And when you're doing that, it sometimes doesn't like it. It's oh, hold on a minute, you know, you're supposed to be here, and it will do something, and it'll grab everyone's attention. I mean, the last time I was up there, it was me, you, Lenny. Is it Jeremy?
Jeremy, yeah.
I can't remember. Mick. Is it Sig something?
Mick Sigson, Jeremy, and Linny and Mark may have been up. I don't know.
Yeah. And we were kind of all chatting away, and then nothing had happened for hours, and it was getting colder and colder. There was one of them scenarios where, should we call it a night? Literally, as soon as we started thinking that, you shouted, "What's that?" And we looked up, and there was this oscillating light in the sky, kind of coming towards us, and you were I've got it on my phone actually. You were shouting, it's coming towards us, and I thought automatically you start thinking, right, let's be rational here. Is it a satellite? At which it stopped and dogleg down the coastline. Do you remember that, Paul?
I do, yeah.
I remember looking on Jeremy's. He got a better screen than I had.
I think he'd got an iPad connected to.
That's it. Yeah. And you can see it very clearly. And it was all the things you see, you know, it's oscillating, it's spinning, exactly like the Bob Lazar footage from the 80s. It's exactly like it, and that's what's so strange about this.
It really is strange, and you know, our wee Linny, I think there were a group of us up there one night, but me and him were looking at what we thought were a big bright satellite moving through the sky, and we're talking about it's bright, and it stopped. And if he's in chat, he'll back me up. It stayed there. It didn't move. It didn't become a star. But if we hadn't have seen it moving, and we're not talking about seeing clouds moving and perceiving that it's something moving. It's in a clear sky with stars, and this thing was moving, and then it just stopped. If we'd not have seen that, that would have, for all intents and purposes, have just been a star. And we talk about it not every time we go, but quite often. Do you remember that one that just stopped? Which can't happen, can it, really? You know?
Well, what me and Paul, we were talking, Paul, weren't we? I mean, I think you'd mentioned Mick wanted to talk about the Skywatcher thing. So I'd heard of it, but I hadn't had time to watch it. And I watched it, and it suddenly clicked and it clicked for you as well, didn't it? When you watched it. But we were, you know, a lot of the time, obviously, you know yourself, you've had sightings during the day up there of crafts, a couple of them, certainly over RAF Bempton. But it did make me think, what would happen if we did, I was going to say a crude version of what Skywatcher were doing, but they're not really doing anything amazing. So what would happen if we, I don't know, had 4 or 5 cameramen stationed, you know, across the cliff tops with suitable equipment, long lenses, or, you know, for IR as well, and just did an operation for a week or so.
Yeah.
I would imagine we would get similar, if not better, results than what they've got.
Yeah. We'll jump on what you said then, but Lorraine's just put this Linny question up, and I forgot about that. The EMFs went off, and we're only talking, I think it's this year, Ian. They weren't just me and you who saw this, so if anybody else is in chat who were there, somebody were on about it other night. It probably Pete, and he'll be listening but won't be in chat. The EMFs went off the scale, as he said, and then they fell off fence. Do you know, it's just craziest things, not on windy nights. So it's really odd. But just to jump back to Chris, go on. You were talking about doing some kind of organised Skywatch or
Skywatch
investigation.
Yeah, and probably something similar to what you're talking about now. I know you've done the watch experiments and you know, time displacement meters, and I think you know, some sort of planned effort with various experiments going on. Not all of them, scientific. Some very pseudo-scientific. Something like including a clairvoyant or something like that. Because although there's a lot of charlatans out there. I believe there are people out there that can and have got that skill. So what's the harm in introducing them to this area and seeing what happens? What's the worst that can happen?
What they can tap into.
Yeah.
Do I'm looking in chat, and there's Tom Waters in chat, and Tom came up with his daughter. You'll have to give it year, Tom, but it's not long since, 18 months since, and we got a thermal signature in the distance, strong thermal signature. Tom set off, Jeremy set off, and Tom and his daughter walking towards this thing. There's Jeremy with the psionics camera on the phone to me, and I've got the thermal camera, the pulsar thermal, and the psionics at one point, phone on fence, and he's saying to me, where is it? And I'm saying, it's in front of you. He's saying, I can't see it, and I can't see it myself with psionics, but we can see it with thermal, and he's in front of it, and you can see this little stick, because he's a long way in distance, and that's Jeremy. That's just this little shape of the man, and there's a huge heat signature. That's the place, or very close to where Linny got this unusual object on his thermal camera. Yeah, do you know what I mean? And Tom will remember that night, because we had a good look round for this. I went back the next day because we concluded that it must be some kind of farm machinery that's just remained hot. But even then, he'd have seen it because he were that close to it, but we didn't see it. And I went back early the next morning, and there's nothing there. Really strange. There's so many strange anomalies up there, but I still maintain Speeton's got more going off. It's just the inaccessibility. You park there, and when you go back, you've got like a 40-minute climb up really steep, really steep bankings and that to get back. And in night with all your camera gear, it don't work. Not at 62-year-old, it don't anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if it's the same place as you're referring to, Paul, I've said for many, many years that hill's the epicenter of everything on Bempton. I know there was a strong argument for the RAF base when I first started going up there, but the more and more I've been up there and been near that particular hill, where 2 UFOs have landed on it. I can't remember what the guy's name was. It Lee Hayward?
Lee Hayward, yeah, absolutely brilliant witness.
That massive sphere of light, which was the size of a Volkswagen. The light square, that daughter and Bob saw that fell to the ground.
All there. The strange.
And if it's the same place Linny's on about with the EMF,
it's literally just off centre from hill, literally within.
I just think something about that hill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Me and you have been on that hill. We've walked right to the top of it.
Yep.
We've stood there with cameras, like filmed the sky. Absolutely, get no feeling, no energy. It's it's just a really bizarre spot where you're away from it and you're viewing it. Things start happening.
Yeah, it is. It's like what Chris said earlier, isn't it? Probably no, it was you that said it. Sorry, mate. When you said let's call it a day, and suddenly something appears in the sky. Yeah. Everything's on its terms. Have you noticed?
Yeah, weirdly enough, as well, and it's not just at night. I mean, in Bob Brown, he might be in the chat today when he took a photograph of the field.
Yeah,
it's such an unassuming hill.
Yeah,
and he saw that creature at the top of the hill that looked. From the back, looked the size of a bear.
Yeah, huge. And I walked up there just for comparison.
Yeah.
And the thing was, if people aren't familiar with this picture, just mention it in chat if you do want to see it, because Bob won't mind, and we'll try and show it you next week, because I don't have it to hand at the moment. But basically, Bob was photographing a kestrel, and so he's looking at the hill, and the kestrel's there, and this thing just appeared. And it
just goes back to what we were saying before. It's almost like when you start ignoring it, because obviously Bob famously he's been up there many times with you, and he's got his podcast, he's got his little show that he does, and whether or not this don't know, trickster entity knows your intent. But when you ignore it starts doing things. It starts performing.
But it doesn't like being seen, and it's upped its game up there, and it's different. And we've noticed a change, and I think when you come up, Mick, you might do yourself, because we're looking for the visuals. We're looking for some kind of something to appear in the sky. We've got the cameras sort of ever ready, but we're not as bothered about that. You're getting pushed in the back. This, whatever it is, will push you. Everybody's experienced. Well, no, Mark hasn't. But others have been pushed. But it's always from behind. You're not getting. Everything's like I'm here. It's almost like a child wanting attention.
Yeah.
But it's so unusual. What's this then, Chris?
Conduit 7. Is this someone new? Conduit 7, if I've missed you before, nice to see you in the chat. Why don't you try a Morse code app which uses your phone's light? It's worked for me, and I have videos to prove it.
Interesting.
It's worth trying it. It's worth trying it. I mean, a lot of people are down on these. We mentioned it last week. These spirit box type apps. There's a lot of negative press about that. So, I think when we do decide to do this, we'll have a look. We're not going to do anything just randomly. We're going to think this through and sort of probably experiment first before we, factor everything into this however many days it is experiment.
Just a project, yeah. I mean, I went up there onto Ridgedanes Dyke. I parked at that farm where I park and walked across. Took food, took a seat, took little dogs, sat there. Beautiful day. Then the plan was just to observe, and I didn't get it on film, but I've just looked to the left, over towards the RAF base, and you're probably looking at 3/4 of a mile at least. And in the sky, I think I maybe told you the other day, Chris, actually, but this is a few years ago. There's a shiny silver thing that just looked like the fuselage of a plane, and I got the camera, and it just disappeared. It almost looked like it were turning and disappeared. It was strange. I didn't see wings. I don't know what it was. And I think we all, people in chat, I think we all get that. I spent too long analysing, is it a plane, instead of just filming. And here's the thing, the big budget people who are filming these things, I'm assuming most of them have got enough camera equipment to film like 24/7, so that if something has been seen, potentially it can pick it up.
I think if you're referring to the Skywatchers, they've actually got radar.
Wow.
They actually pick these things up on radar before they actually get eyes on them.
Yeah. And then when they do get eyes on them, they film something that looks like it's been filmed on a potato. I'm sorry. Yeah. I shouldn't say that, should I? But,
UAP. That's what the P stands for.
Yeah. Potato. Unidentified potato.
Anomalous potatoes.
Anomalous potato.
That would be good. I mean, I know me and Paul have spoke for years about trying to get some sort of research centre together up there, or I know, Paul, you've got one of the guys have offered you some land in this sort of location, and have something a little bit more sort of structured up there, out of the elements as well, which would obviously be a huge help, and make it a little bit more comfortable for people up there. So I don't know, it'd be great to have some sort of backing for you guys.
There's enough interest, to get you'd get a rotation system, I think, where people, I don't want to live there. Everybody, you, Chris, we've all got lives, people in chat, but there's enough interest for people to devote a bit of time to it and observe. Something like that could probably be manned pretty much all the time, and you would get results, especially if you were filming and you'd got a great sort of bank of cameras or cameras that are giving you a 360. It'd be incredible to see what could be attained and what results could be there. It'd be fabulous.
I mean, theoretically, could you, as a temporary option, as a none of these cheap caravans, the ones that haven't got long left on the site, could you?
But where are you going to put it, Chris?
No,
you mean on this land? I think it'd end up getting, sounds terrible, burnt or something.
No, I mean one on an existing site up there.
Well,
with the views.
No, though I know I'm sounding so negative, but the ones with the views attract the prime locations and the best caravans. They'd get moved on because
they get moved on.
Well, I've been to Danes Dyke today, met a witness, but whilst at Danes Dyke, the guy who has the big CCTV camera on the cliff tops at Thornick Bay, he was there. And I keep approaching him. He knew just who I was. He said, I've not forgot. You know, we've because there's satellite dishes attached to this big. It's like a TV. It's like one of the ones you'd have in a street with a big camera on, and it's just there on its own on cliffs. But the satellite dishes on attached to it and things as well. And he said there were some negotiations underway at the moment, whatever they were doing. But he might be doing something else up there. So he said, I've not forgot, because I said, look, we do the Truth Proof live stream. We do the last transmission live stream. There'll be no shortage of people that would be interested to have access to a camera that overlooks this area, you know, and for a small subscription fee. And, you know, a lot of small fees could amount to a substantial amount of money for him. Do you know what I mean? It's so he's not forgot, and I've not forgot to ask, because people keep asking me this. And as I say, I just bumped into it.
The other option, Paul, would be if you had some sort of finance or backing, you could have something which was possibly mobile.
Yeah.
Which obviously you reference Speeton, like a mobile, you know, control center or HQ where you did your research from on particular nights and traveled up and down the coastline.
That would be helpful.
Places that, you know, have not had more eyes on them, that you know, are probably equally as active as
absolutely
Cliff. Yeah.
Well, Steve Ashbridge came up with Kez and Steve came up in the week last week, and Steve said, I can't wait to get back up to the back of RAF Staxton Wold. We used to spend a lot of time up there, and we were talking about the time that I were up there with Steve and a guy called Joe Dormer. We'd picked Joe up from Scarborough, and I'd got I'll tell you how long since it was. My best camera was a Sony VX2100. So I've got this Sony in my hand, and they're talking as we do, and I'm looking over towards onto the wolds, and this monstrous bubble just appeared from the ground. It was huge. It covered a monstrous area, and it was turquoise. And I was just blown away. Absolutely, I should have put the camera on and just left it filming, but instead I'm just telling these two, I can't believe what I've just seen. It were almost embarrassing because they're not seeing it, and how they're going to believe me. But Ed's turned in that direction. Steve were on about it other day. It did it again. And so they got to see it. We were convinced it were going to be in newspapers. We were convinced that it's going to be on local news, because it was so big. It must have been some kind of natural phenomenon, I think. But if you imagine a mushroom but covering miles, it just looked like that, and it was turquoise and just incredible. But you see all sorts. I'm not averse to looking at natural phenomena. Do you know what I mean? Or somebody explaining to me, look, you've not really seen anything unusual there, Paul. You've seen something unusual, but it's not otherworldly. It's a natural phenomena. That works. Not everything has to be unexplained, does it?
No.
Well, speaking of natural phenomena, if it is natural, I'd say they've just recently announced about plasma, haven't they? That it's an intelligent and sentient, haven't they? Seen that?
No.
Yeah, I think it's a paper from NASA, or an equivalent of talking about these things, saying that these things are definitely. You coined that term, Paul. I don't know how long ago.
In 2004, my website were called ILF UFO, Intelligent Light Forms, because I thought that these lights there was some kind of awareness and intelligence to them. Yeah.
Well, now they're saying that's what it is. So, you know, it begs the question, and going back to, you know, we said, but we're talking about these experiments, and it makes you think, with all that stuff coming out of Skinwalker, and I know you've had 2 bouts of really bad injuries.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Obviously, we can't attribute, there's no proof to attribute it to what's going on up there. It just seems, it's weird, very similar to some of the stuff and the reports that come out of places like Skinwalker. Are you any more wary of delving into this stuff? Or
it does make you wonder. As you know, I spoke to Jim Segala, the scientist at Skinwalker, and Mick knows this, who's been looking into the injuries that people have allegedly got when they've been too close to the phenomena.
Yeah.
And there were similarities. Now, I don't mind. I might have sent you them pictures, Chris. If you could find one of them pictures, you by all means put it up, because I don't know where it came from. All I know is I'd been in these locations and suddenly something happened. I thought I was going to die. It was just awful. Did you see pictures, Mick?
No, I don't think I did.
It looked like I'd just been beat up. And
it did. It was scary. It looked just like your head just swollen, like purple.
It's big enough, but it was bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just weird.
Yeah.
But
and it happened twice. It come on twice, and the doctors had no idea what had brought it on.
I mean, it's obviously a correlation between a lot of those things, particularly people who sort of kind of work in and around these areas where they pick up these injuries, or they pick up these so-called hitchhikers, and it follows them back home. I read the book. Was it Skinwalkers at the Pentagon?
Yeah.
And one of the people in the book took whatever it was from Skinwalker back home. I think it was a lady. I'm not sure. I think it was a lady. Or no, actually, it was someone called Axelrod. I think it was called. They were called in the book. And it was in his normal home. And he said his wife was in the kitchen, and she kind of stared out to the garden. She was just doing a normal stuff you were doing in and around the kitchen. And there was a werewolf in the garden, leaning against the tree. And it had one of its feet against the tree. It was stood upright, staring at her. Of course, she let out a huge scream, and it kind of like ran off. And then it happened again, but the children saw it this time. And I think the father gave chase, and he said as it was running, it was kicking up the leaves on the ground. So yeah, there's obviously there's lots of things attributed to these areas, like, orbs, like I said, hitchhikers. It's just an array of different weird, crazy stuff. And when someone says, they've been harmed by these things, well, if you're having that physical effect from the ground, who's to say you can't be harmed by it?
Yeah, there's a physical to it, isn't there? Without a doubt. And it strikes me every time we talk about something like that, you said the word werewolf or dogman or Sasquatch, how ridiculous that must sound to people. But we have to have faith in the people that are talking about seeing these things. Yeah. And it's only by people being brave enough to share what they've seen and experienced. And in some instances, it's traumatic. That we'll get more people coming forward.
It's weird, actually. It's weird, actually, that when obviously these people are traumatized, and when they're describing what they saw, generally they say, well, it was kind of on its back legs, and it was man-like, and had a large snout and long ears, and it looked like a werewolf. Where it used to be referred to Dogman and that kind of thing. They disbelieve themselves. You can see they're being very sincere when they say it. So yeah, very strange.
The lady I spoke to today, she, obviously I haven't got the recording, but she said, I can't believe I'm saying this. I can't believe what I'm saying, or what I've seen. And do you want me to briefly tell you, or are you wanting to move on to something else, Chris?
No, go for it. Yeah.
This is the interesting thing. Earlier in the week, I got a sale of some books, and usually I email everybody and said books will be in post tomorrow morning, and I realized it were in Bridlington. So I emailed, said they can be posted tomorrow morning, or I'm passing your home to pick Linny up. We're off to. I didn't say that's what we were doing, and I'd drop them off. So I did. So I had this conversation, dropped the books off, had a brief conversation, and left. And based on that conversation, and we weren't talking about cryptids or anything, and she's not started the books. This lady and a friend went to Danes Dyke that night. Went there at 9 o'clock at night last Thursday, and doesn't know the area that well, not being in living in the area that long. So Said we had a walk down to the beach, walked back up, and a friend suggested that instead of walking through the woodland, they walk across this little field, little meadow, and that's what they did. And they ended up back at the car. So anybody familiar with Danes Dyke, you parked on the car park overlooking the dike itself and the trees. And that's where we parked today, because this lady were kind enough to show me where she saw it and what she saw. Says, and we're sort of nothing untoward. Nothing untoward, just been a nice night, and it were dark. It's now 10 o'clock. Start the car, put the headlights on, illuminated that area, and bang, it's there. It's in front of us. And she said, whatever it was, she said, I know what wolves look like. I've actually walked with wolves years ago. I don't know, you people get a chance to walk with wolves, don't you? Maybe you pay and you can do that. But she's walked with wolves. Said, and this thing, what a grey-black colour. A friend said that she could see skin through its fur. It was a huge wolf, but longer than a wolf, if that made sense. Said, and it's like crouching. But when it was in this opening between the trees, it turned and looked. Now, no mind speak, nothing, but the inference that she got was, you wanted to say something? Well, you have. Said, and its eyes were bright orange. And a friend said, because she said, I couldn't see the skin below the fur. I could see this thing. And clearly it weren't a fleeting glimpse, that I saw it as clear as day in the headlights. But a friend said that when it disappeared into the trees, she still see the eyes glowing. So that's fascinating. Now, is there a connection with, not with me, but with, is the mindset there now? You've just got these books, and we know there's an interest, obviously, else you wouldn't have purchased the books. But that's fascinating. And so then today, and I'll not go into detail because this is about Mick, and I want to hear more of Mick, but we went and looked around the area, walked through this sighting, this experience. And as we're walking back, there's a vehicle coming up the main road. It's only a single track road into Danes Dyke, and it's one way. And it's a camper van, or it's a transit van, but with windows in. Nice van. So I step at one side of the road, this lady steps at the other, because they're just coming up nice and steady. This guy pulls up at the side of me. He says, "Is it Paul?" I said, yeah. So I've got something to tell you. I've got a story for you. Are you busy? So I said, well, I'm just talking to this lady. Any road, we proceeded, and this guy unfolded this incredible story. He was with his wife, and we parked up, and we ended up having an hour listening to this guy's incredible story from Danes Dyke, which we can touch on if there's, but we can do questions and things, because I don't want to overtake Mick here with what we're talking about.
Honestly, Paul, it's fascinating. I mean, I love hearing your accounts. It's brilliant.
Well, this is literally just from today. I got this story. I can't remember what year he said, but I'm speaking to him tomorrow. I'm going to meet up with him tomorrow. And he's not from area, and he's here till Friday. So I've arranged to meet up with him tomorrow. And we walked up the road, and then we turned to the first kiosk. And there's a parking area that's just a field. I like to go into that one rather than the main car park. So this guy says, we're about where we are now. So we're probably looking at, I don't know, 50 foot away. There's the parking kiosk where you'd get your ticket to park. And this guy's into his classic cars, into old cars. And he said, I'm just there. And he wasn't with his wife at this time. And I'm looking, and I thought, bloody hell, that Fiesta. And he did say Fiesta. It's in brilliant condition. And he said it was NREG. Not that it's any bearing on story. He said, but I look at it and I thought, what good condition. An old lady got out of the car, went to pay for parking. He'll be listening to this because he asked me tonight. He says, what's that? So if you're in chat, please just back me up on what I'm saying, even with a few words if you want. He said, next thing, so he's looking at this. He's 50 foot away. Might be 60, might be 40, but he said this thing appeared with daylight. He said, and it looked like a tall man in a wax jacket, and I'm sure he said it was like a beige or dark brown wax jacket with a hat on, trilby hat, and it just appeared. And the old lady's at the kiosk, and it went behind the car, and that's when he realised that it's twice as high as the car. So if you picture a Ford Fiesta, he said this thing's like 7 or 8 foot high. He said, and then it stooped I realised how ridiculous this sounds. And it literally transformed. He says, and I saw a mane and I saw a dog's head and it disappeared. And I'm blown away. And as he's telling me, I'm thinking, I've heard this before. Seriously. I said, have you emailed me years ago? He said, yeah, I did. And that's, I tell people, it's a lot of, I try not to lose emails, but this one had slipped through the net. So this is the guy. He says, I've been down many times hoping to see you, to tell you. And as I say, I got the story today, and tomorrow I'm going to meet up with him tomorrow afternoon, and I'll do it in a little bit more detail. Fascinating. So are all these people lying? Are they all fantasists? Definitely not. There's some truth to what these people are talking about. And the lady who saw this thing last Thursday took some photographs during the night of the area. She sent me 3 or 4 photographs. Now, I don't want to be one of these red circles and look, there's a werewolf in that circle. I don't want to do that, but it's interesting that the time stamped and dated, and it's interesting that these photographs have got this hazy figure of something that's almost like a tracing in them. So I'll have a closer look at them, I don't know, next day or so. So it's fascinating. Stories coming all the time. It's just fascinating. Oh, not stories, personal experiences.
I've got to say, one of my favorite stories you've ever told me, I think Chris will back me up on this one, was the one where the couple that they were living in a quite a remote house, quite a large house by all accounts, and the dog's at the end of the bed, and it's in the dead of the night, and they can hear this howling.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the. It's straight out of a Stephen King book.
Absolutely. And I don't know whether these people would be listening because I'm not in communication, no fallout or anything. I think me talking about it, we've had witnesses I've had people come to me and say, I want to tell you, I'll get to that in a moment, Mick, but I want to tell you something that happened to me 20 years ago. I've not really told anybody about it before, and I want to tell you. And they relate this story. And then they've come and said, do you know something? I feel like it's around. I feel like I've kind of woke it up. It's almost like people call this thing the hitchhiker effect, but I think it's just a matter of a thought process away. Do you know what I mean? The intermind connection. I don't think these things are actually attaching to people. It's almost like its eyelids have flickered. I'm back. You're back on my radar, or I'm back on its radar. But that story, that was a house in East Yorkshire, a big period house in East Yorkshire. But I don't want to just do this if you want to talk about something else, Chris, do you?
No, not at all. No, it's relevant because I think from this, the bigger question is, what's the bloody connection here?
What is the connection? And what is the connection with this ridiculous animal? If it is an animal, this ridiculous visualization that people get of something that they describe as a werewolf. That must be something from the worst nightmares. But these people have gone to bed in this huge property that's in its own grounds. I've got to be very careful because I told them I wouldn't say names or anything, and I never have done, because the property's got a name. I could call our house a name, but it's got a name that's known. So I said, we're in bed, laid there, and when they go to bed, the dog lays on the bed between them. Just a little Jack Russell, I'm sure that's what it was. But on this night, it stood on the end of there's a wooden bed, bottom of the bed, no curtains, there's not overlooking anybody, big windows, and it stood rigid. It's just looking out into the darkness. No street lights, there's nothing to see. So, and this is prior to it. He said, and then all of a sudden, there's this ungodly screaming, howling sound that we can hear. And because of where they live and knowing the land, they knew that it weren't on their property, and they knew that it were fields away. And then it stopped. Dog never moved. Dog didn't become agitated. It's just rigid. Amount of time passes. It does it again, this ungodly howling. And they think, it's near our property now. It's near our field line. So amount of time passes. It does it again. It's in their field. They're laid there. At first, I don't think that the one knew the other one was awake. And the husband or the wife said, can you hear that? He said, I'm listening to it. I think that's how it worked. I'm listening to it. And they're just laid there, transfixed, listening to this, and it's getting closer. Then it's in the field that goes onto their garden, and this ungodly howling. The next thing, it's on the drive, and they told me that their drives was all gravelled, but it needed probably redoing, so the gravel, you know, it wasn't like all loose and sort of you can hear it all. So it takes something heavy to crunch the gravel. She said, no, they've got horses, and when the horses go, you can hear it crunching into gravel, you know, a horse. But anyway, it's on the gravel, and they can hear it walking. And they said it were 2 feet that were walking, and it got bang under the window, the bedroom window, and let out this bellowing, reverberating howl. And the husband says, I've not locked the front door. Not that I don't think it'd matter. I know you can't, but and they're absolutely terrified. But an amount of time passes, and the dog's not moved. The dog's not barking or going silly. But an amount of time passes, a short amount of time, and it just follows the same, retreats in the same sequence of events to which it came. Now, whether I get more on that, I were really hoping to get a lot more on that. And I do understand, because I told the story, and I wasn't not allowed to, but I think it brought back very frightening memories, and I've got no more on it. You know what I mean? Imagine living through that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
But again, going back, like, what is the connection? What drives it? What triggers it?
Why?
Why? Yeah. What's the? I mean, interestingly, threaded throughout what we were talking about earlier, disclosure, behind the scenes that they haven't really mentioned yet, but those that know, is this occult element, this thread woven through, well, even through time, if you like, going back to ritualistic stuff, Nathaniel's kind of research. But is this something to do with it? And then does it do something to the land, or does it? Do you know what is it?
I don't know, because I don't think these people had been doing anything untoward. I think they're pretty peace-loving people. Although nobody knows what anybody's been up to, but from what I can gather, they were just good people, and this was just one freak.
I think whatever it is ancient.
Yeah.
Now, if you go back, so what was happening on Skinwalker Ranch when the Shermans were on there, where it was probably at its peak of activity. There was cattle mutilations. There was bulls being placed in locked porta cabins. It was just the craziest accounts. UFOs landing outside the main ranch house. It was just off the scale. And they always said it was like Malevolent there. Whereas you go to the Bradshaw Ranch, where it's having very, very similar accounts. A lot of the stuff that was happening there was malevolent. Nothing bad happened. It was always presenting. There was, as he said, Bigfoot activity, hundreds and hundreds of UFOs seen, hundreds of orbs cascading down the mountains. Now, obviously, that's in Sedona, and there's a huge history of tribal ritual sort of like things going on there, and there's portals and all kinds of stuff that they say they're in and around that area. Going back to what you were saying before, Paul, a lot of it is the location.
And do you think it's intent? Do you think?
I think whatever it is, like we said at the beginning of the stream, it's interdimensional. I think that's playing a huge part on what these things are and what actually comes through. They're not there obviously all the time, because for years and years it's completely dead. Nothing happened there. I think at Skinwalker Ranch, when Bob Bigelow bought that, I think it was a good 10 years where it was absolutely nothing happened.
Yeah. Well, Marco comes up onto cliff tops. He always comes up later than us. Whatever time we get up, he'll be an hour later. And he'll say, has anything happened? and said, no, nothing, kind of thing. And he commented the other day, he says, it does that, doesn't it? And then it'll just suddenly pick up and there's activity. But we get little bits, and it's almost, we filmed Light Under Sea a few weeks ago, and not just a fleeting glance, we filmed it for quite a long time. But you get these little bits, and it's almost like we're just conditioned to the condition. We're looking for something bigger happening, but we keep jumping back to Skywatcher. When you see what they're absolutely raving about, you realize that we've got the bigger picture. It's happening. Yeah. We really should be putting it out there.
Yeah, definitely.
You just made me think of something there, Paul. You know, you talk about the sighting you took off the guy, and he said that this, whatever it was, this figure was wearing something that looked at a distance like a wax jacket. Well, I was listening to something the other day about it was one of the Navajo Rangers, and he was lecturing about Skinwalker. And part of the ritual with Skinwalker is that they would often wear the skin of the animal.
Yeah, that's Norse as well.
That they were about to transform into. It's part of the ritual, and you know, they might carry a bone, and that's this kind of thing. Just makes you. I would just wonder, just curious as to whether
ritualistic in Norse mythology, they would. I think they'd wear a wolf girdle, the wolf skin, and I think that there were a name for it. Somebody's going to jump all over me because I've not really thought about this for years, but I think it's called hammer. The Norse name for it. Thanks, Mary. The transformation, you know. And all sorts of things, and just jumping to it, you know, some of it could have been with the use of hallucinogenics, and it might not have been any transformation. They'd take fly garrix, they would feed fly garrix to the reindeers, the Norsemen, and sounds cruel, this people, but they'd drink the reindeer's urine, which had filtered out all the poisons, and they would get the benefit of the fly garric and the hallucinations, and they would call them the berserkers. They went into battle absolutely fearless, and crazy, isn't it? Who thought of that? Who would have thought? This is how we're going to do it. You know,
how did you discover that? Yeah, how did you figure that out?
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
And then that can potentially take you to
another world.
Kind of thought. Forget that. Just came and went.
What about today? Sorry, mate. Go on.
Yeah, it's weird actually as well, Paul. Just wanted to touch on all the sort of satanic rituals that actually happened up at Bempton as well. When I first started going up there, I mean, when I first started actually talking to you, I was doing a bit more research into what was happening up there, and obviously there's a lot of correlations with Crowley and that sort of satanic, demonic rituals, and it makes you think about the werewolf side of things.
And what have they evoked or brought through?
Exactly. And the other locations in and around the area. I mean, you've took me to burial mounds and all sorts of stuff. And you think, well, back in the day, what actually happened here?
Yeah, what happened there?
We can only speculate what happened.
And why invest all your time building this 2.5 mile structure called Dane's Dyke?
Exactly. You know? It's just bizarre.
Absolutely. Do we have any questions, Chris?
Yeah, I think so. Do you want to put some questions up?
If you want to, yeah.
Chris, where can I watch Don't Mention the Reptilians? Yeah, you can watch it on YouTube, Matt. It's called Alien Reptilian Legacy now. They changed the name.
This is your film, Chris, isn't it? Originally?
Yeah. Draco, Mick, would you agree that Paul is an equal part of the Bempton phenomena as anything else that occurs?
I'm not so sure, Draco. Sorry, I know you didn't ask me that. Go on. What?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he is a phenomenon anyway. So to the subject, but maybe so. I think whatever's up there is very aware who Paul is.
Yeah, just before we go to that question, Chris, Pete's not in chat, but he's listening, and Linny knows this. Me and Pete were up there. Mick's been to that spot. Chris has. We're literally 2 foot apart, and we're only looking over the cliffs, and someone went, Paul. And I looked at Pete, and Pete, I've said this before, it's Broad Yorkshire, went, did they hear that? It said the name, and he literally did. Yeah. It spoke. Something said my name.
You didn't have that T-shirt on, did you?
No. Then it knew. Yeah.
I mean, back just before you go to that, Chris, it's all, you know, I've said this before. It's when you went to the field when there was the sheep mutilations and you heard the robotic voice.
Oh yeah, that was strange.
And it was there. It was yeah. And weirdly enough, the farmer heard it. I'm not sure how long after that, Paul.
It was very close. It was in close time frame to it.
It's obviously it's aware of you.
Yeah.
So on miles, and it picked that location where you was, and you're actively looking for it.
We were looking for whatever was killing those sheep, and just leave question up, Lorraine, if you want, because we're, you know, I'll not labour on this. But I went early hours at morning with Mary's little dog one morning, walking through bracken, ferns and bracken that were really tall. And I'm only 5'6" and as tall as me. And I heard a robotic voice. Now somebody's always going to say, yeah, maybe there's somebody in there with walkie-talkie or something. Yeah, possible. But I heard it. It unnerved me enough not to want to walk back. I did. But I was very unnerved.
Early in the morning as well, Paul.
It was very early in the morning.
If you refer to walkie-talkies, who's going to be out at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning unless you...
Well, plus the fact that when you walk into bracken, it's like walking into corn. You can see a trail. You can see where somebody's been. There were nobody there. But I told the farmer a few days later, and there were a crop of corn, I think, or barley, level with his decking where he sits and has a coffee on a night, and he's got a fish pond there. And he said, I heard some voices the other night. I said, where? He says, there. And, you know, his decking's a little bit raised, and you know that corn's only about 28, 30 inch high. And I said, what do you mean there? He says, in corn, there, about 20 foot away. And you look, there's no tracks in corn. Heard voices. Some ladies went up there and stayed in close proximity 2 weeks ago. And they put a camera on, a really, really good, inexpensive camera. I think if you're in chat, Heidi, I think I'm wrong in calling it a Wise, W-I-Z-E. I might be wrong. And it was set to take a picture every 3 seconds and left it running overnight. And that woodland, there's orbs of light, but not just on ground. And people are going to say, oh, it's somebody with a torch in early hours at morning. There's orbs of light. There's one orb of light that stays. She calculated this, smarter woman than me. It were there for 2 hours, shining forward, and just caught on this camera. Interesting. It's a proper epicenter of strangeness.
Yeah, it's very odd. Daryl Cobb, has Paul had the thermal footage that Linny filmed? Have you had it analysed anyway? I don't know where he would. I
don't know how we would, but no. And it's Linny's footage. Let's not forget that, Daryl. I've got some thermal footage that's similar. Carl Dan's filmed some that's similar. But you know, where would we have it analysed? No, there will be somewhere, I suppose. You know, and that's not a bad idea. We've been sort of frugal with what we've put out at the moment, because I've put stuff on internet in the past and it's just got, somebody said, oh, I've seen your footage on somebody's channel, and they just use it. Nobody references it. I say that with YouTube channel, truthproof.uk. If you want to use the reports on your channel, use them. Just give us a bit of credit for it, you know, because they're nowhere else in the world. These are original reports. But anyway, we haven't had it analysed, to answer that question.
Welsh Rebel, I can't get my head around any of this. I'm stunned things like this happens. Do you ever get frightened while out and about?
Yes, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I think we'd be absolutely dumb as toast not to be careful and cautious when you're dealing with this kind of thing, because it's, you know, there's potentially it's frightening.
Yeah, if you look at this, I know we keep referencing Skinwalker, but if you look at any of them ranches and any of them declassified experiments, even so some of it's not declassified, there's some dangerous stuff going on. I know we joke about it a lot, and I know you guys are having a lot of banter up there. Anything could be going on up there.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, you know, but at the same time, you don't want to give it any power, so you don't want to breed fear, do you, up there either? So.
No, not really. I mean, we've had some moments up there that have been a bit frightening. And I don't know if Jeremy's in chat, but he's not been up for about 2 weeks, and I think he's working away at the moment. But he wanders off in darkness on his own, and he walked off probably about 6 weeks ago, and he suddenly got this strange feeling of fear and unease, and then he heard a noise like something like a baton being dragged along steel railings. But there's nothing there. There's nothing to do it. I says, well, what? He says, right again, me. And I throw it out there. Either he's lying or he's telling truth. Either I'm lying or I'm telling truth. And we're not. We're saying it as it happens. People say, why do you experience all these things? Why are you catching all these lights? Well, while you're sat watching Coronation Street, you've got some lunatic like me in a remote place trying to observe and film these things. Sorry for saying it like that, but that's why we're catching it.
Yeah, Conduit 7 just backing up what they said earlier about they'll come to Bempton, and they were talking about the app, weren't they? So to prove the worth that they can. I'm
sure. Conduit. It's not a competition, mate. Anybody that goes up there, I'm enthralled if they have an experience and they've got something to kind of share and bring to the table. It's brilliant,
Right. If anyone can bring evidence, brilliant. Bring it on.
Yeah.
Steve Collin, I still maintain these sightings are from when early man lived on the cars and the wolds, shaman bringing them forth like Skinwalker Ranch, Navajo Indian shapeshifters. Yeah.
I would agree with that as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that, Steve.
David, just throwing ideas out there. This phenomenon has been discussed many times, has always avoided attention. Could this phenomenon be humans from the future, careful not to interact?
Yes, I don't see why not, David. What's your thoughts on that?
I think everything's valid right now. Everything's on the table. Yeah. So who knows? I mean, if they're discussing interdimensional things, maybe that's how they get here. I don't know.
But humans from the future, would they want to present as something that we call a werewolf? Or do you know what I mean? I'm not so certain. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I just don't know. It just never fails to astonish me every time somebody reports one of those things, because it just doesn't fit in any box that we can call normal. I don't think it ever will.
Well, it's strange that, you were talking about the sighting of that of the well-established property, the wolf howling. That's the other. I know Mick was saying it's one of his favourites, but one of my favourites of yours is the Anubis thing. So, and that's a Dogman connection in America. They're seeing these things. So what? This is an Egyptian type.
Yeah,
but
what
the
hell, like
Paul, you've had a couple of accounts like that, Paul. I remember. I remind you of an account where the two guys were in a tent. I think there were two brothers, and they saw the red eyes behind the hedge, and the silhouette of the Anubis came up, and there was two, if I remember right. And that's fascinating as well. And these are ancient.
And they don't conform at all, do they? And when you actually look into it, there's quite a lot of reports out there, like you said, of these dog-headed deities in all cultures around the world. And this is before this cross-pollination of information that people had got. They'd sort of established these things almost godlike. I don't know, Anubis, and there's the underworld tone to it as well. And I don't mean the horror film. There's this tone that Anubis was the guardian of the underworld, and or take the dead to the underworld, didn't he? You guided them through. And there's all this talk at Indian burial mounds. We've got the Skinwalker. Burial mounds in UK, people talk about seeing these things. There's a connection to death and the transition to the other realm, perhaps. I don't know why. I mean, we look upon dogs as guard dogs. It's interesting when you spell dog backwards, it's God. Do you know what I mean? It's I don't know.
Lee Roscoe's asking, Paul, the two ladies at the dike, did they go in mind to see something?
No, they wanted to just experience having a walk around, a nighttime walk. It weren't night; it was 9 o'clock when they set off. They went down to the beach and then back up. And in a word, she said we'd have bumped into that, assuming it wanted to be seen, if we'd have gone through that wooded area. But it was just the fact that it was stalking, just like a dog would sort of crouch and stalk, and then it literally just looked at them. And the no mind speak. I'm not going to infer that that's what she said, but it was, you wanted to see something. That's how she was thinking. Well, here I am.
Yeah.
And she was keen to stress that I feel stupid saying this. You know, fairly rational. Well, not fairly, very rational. Brilliant.
I think Tino's asking here, could the wax coat man be the same as the hatted man witnessed by that couple on that summer's day? But I thought that was more like a man in black, was it?
It was, yeah. But you know, this guy who I'm going to speak to again tomorrow, and if you're in chat, just tell me what type of hat you said. I'm sure you said it were a trilby hat. I'm sure that's what you said. But I'll get the lowdown on that one tomorrow afternoon and get more detail, and we'll see.
The other question you could throw up about these dogmen, let's call it dogmen, werewolf, whatever, and it rarely gets mentioned. And since we are talking about UFOs, it never gets thrown in. It's a bit like Bigfoot; it never gets thrown in that category. You get the odd researcher that will say, "Well, maybe this." I mean, Darrell Denton mentioned that he thought he was told by that Sasquatch that he encountered that they were from the stars.
All right.
So it begs the question. You know, you've got the government admitting that we're in. I don't believe what's his name? What's he called? Mick something Davis. Eric Davis.
Eric Davis, the physics guy.
Yeah, he mentioned that they're in touch with, I don't know, 57 or four races of
beings. Did he not mention? Obviously the greys, the tall. No, I think he got asked the question about the tall greys, and he said, "No, I've never been told about them." And the Nordics was the other one, wasn't it? I can't remember. And it was when he was talking to Congress, and it was kind of like a one-on-one, sort of quite relaxed kind of question Q&A. And he just started coming out of all this stuff, and you never really hear him talk about anything like that, really.
No.
He strikes me as someone who keeps his cards very close to his chest. Particularly, obviously, he was part of the NIDS team when Bigelow had Skinwalker Ranch, along with Howard Putoff, and what's the guy who did the book with George Knapp, Colin Keller.
Colin Kelleher, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was like one of the main guys. Yeah, Eric doesn't really, but I think it's because he's still quite heavily involved with the government and various projects they're doing anyway.
It's interesting, you know, you mentioned Colin Kelleher. These are not George Knapp. They've all George has requested what I'm up to at Bempton and had loads of information in passed off me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I could definitely believe it.
They have. They definitely have. And just out of interest, I don't know if anybody watches Blaze TV, but apparently I'm on it tonight. At 9 o'clock, so I don't know what it's about.
Weird Britain, Paul.
It's Weird Britain, yeah.
It's not Crime Stoppers.
Not Crime Stoppers, no. And I noticed Tom Waters in chat. He said that's Nick's account, Paul. So that must be what Mick's just alluded to. You said that you were talking about another cryptid sighting where it raised its head.
That's it.
Yeah, and what I'll do.
You told me many years ago, Paul, and it all stuck in my head. I think you might have mentioned that a hand came into the tent.
That's that is the Pinch and Thorpe Forest one. But they're similar. But that one, what Tom's just been on about, that guy was very nervous, and it's a friend of Tom's, and I had a brilliant conversation with him. Well, a few conversations, and so I'll put it out there, Tom. Do you think that I'd be all right to talk about that one? Not tonight, but I will do. Because it is an interesting one. He's lived in a caravan, this guy. But anyway, go on, guys. Sorry.
Yeah. Let's just answer this one. Chris Paul, have you ever met Tony Topping? Yeah, I've met Tony. I have.
Yeah, I don't know what he's about now. I don't know what he's up to. I don't know. Used to see him odd times at conferences.
Yeah, not seen him for ages. Yeah, and he's not seen him online much. So no, I haven't not seen him for a while.
I'm not sure what you mean there, Steve. Paul, think it's you at the Rudston Monolith. I don't know. Oh, right. Of course, I know what you mean. We're on about the Weird Britain. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
But, right. Yeah, because I did a few things with them. And
right. I'm just gonna put. Sorry, Paul. I'm just gonna put this comment up because it's just relevant because what we were just talking. Oh, wrong one. That one.
It's okay.
MBT whatever that says. St. Christopher was a Canaanite. Canaanites were depicted as animal hybrid Nephilims. He was meant to be 8 foot tall. Was he meant to be one of the cynocephalus? Is that the?
Yeah, well, there's paintings of him that depict him as that. Yeah, but that could be just one man's interpretation.
Allegedly, and I read somewhere that he were always depicted like that, and up until a certain point, and then they started.
And then we changed the narrative. Oh, I didn't know that. So that's
that's what. Look, that doesn't mean it's true just because someone said it. This is the internet. Margaret Webster, St. Christopher's often picture as having a dog's head. It does make you think. I mean, you can't. It's so difficult for us to imagine, but. Who knows? Like Mick said earlier, there's nothing off the table here.
No.
1423. Do you scan the area with your thermal IR cameras before you go out onto the cliff tops, Paul? It does no harm to be a little cautious.
We're always scanning. Usually, I've got the psionics out, 14, and the thermal. I've sort of fitted a long cord to it, and it'll just fit in a pocket. It's a big pocket because it's a pulsar thermal. It's not a little one. And I always have a look round because just on off chance that you're gonna see something. We got some footage from over the sea. Both thermals filmed it. Mine, there's nothing on it. When I downloaded it, there's nothing on it. Linny's has got it, and you were on about it other day. We need to get that downloaded, and because we've got a sphere, and you can see birds as it's passing them. You can see birds that are on the water, lifting off and flying. And he come out with I didn't think of this. Ian did. Obviously, the gannets have got potentially a 2 meter wingspan. They've got a big wingspan, the gannets, haven't they? Or they say they have. I don't know whether that's an exaggeration, but it says it on boards there. But this thing's bigger than the gannets. Do you know what I mean? And it looks like a sphere.
Cool.
Just on thermal, traveling, looks to be above the water, and there's birds on water that, as it's approaching, they're taking off. And we filmed it for 12 minutes approximately. As I say, mine didn't film anything; it just malfunctioned, but he's got it on his. So yeah.
I see another one of those metallic spheres has appeared. Have you seen?
Oh, right, I've seen the picture.
I'm not convinced by that. I mean, that's the same guy. Going back some years ago when I watched one of these history. It might have been a history program. It was something like that about the paranormal. He basically divulged that he got a skeleton of an alien.
That's right. Yeah.
That had been caught in a rat trap in a garage, and basically it was a spider monkey with its teeth have been filed down. So that was the first thing. Then obviously more recently the alien bodies with an elongated head, and I think someone outed that as there was some part of an animal body that it looked like an alien head. It got like
it was Stephen Barry.
White powder over it. And then obviously the latest one is this sphere, but it looked at, I don't know, the whole thing, the promo photographs got a blowtorch on it, and there was like different, it was in a kind of lab sort of garage setup. It was just
is this the one that's got the carvings on?
Yeah.
This is another. This one I'm talking about is another one.
Oh,
right? This is a plain one, and it's the Ross Coulthard's got it on the show this week, I think. This week or next week.
Okay. I'm not seeing this one, but
it moves on its own. Apparently, I don't know.
It's got engravings on it, and you see it's dancing around in the sky, comes down in the field, and the farmer goes down goes down to collect it, and then obviously you see it on a stand, and they're measuring things, and people in hazmat outfits and all the usual stuff,
trying to big it up kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not convinced about that guy. I think he likes to generate loads of interest and hype.
He's an Egyptian guy, is he? Yeah.
I'm in my son. Yeah, he's. I think.
Ross Coulthard, he's doing some really good stuff. And Is it News Nation? Is his channel that he works for? Very, very, very good. I mean, I watched his recent one where he was oddly enough in Sedona, that we just spoken about, and he was traveling around there and taken to the various vortexes, and he got some guy there. They were looking at various footage that the Border Patrol had filmed of various craft that were filmed in and around the border area between Mexico and the States. So that was quite interesting.
Is this do they call one the rubber duck?
Rubber duck, yeah.
Duck. Obviously,
I was speaking about it before.
They
actually had eyes on it for an hour, but they filmed it, I think, 45 minutes, and it was they said it was actively looking for something going around some sort of hillside.
Right.
And you see all the points of reference where it stopped for 45 minutes. That's a lot of data.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it basically debunks the whole balloon thing.
Mm.
It wasn't a drone. There was absolutely zero heat coming from it. So yeah, very, very strange.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? You know, and like you said, Ross Coulthard is a great voice for the subject. I think.
Yeah.
Whether you agree, well, is he? He sits on fence. I don't think he's one way or other, is he? You know, he does sit on fence, and I suppose that's his job. He's got to do.
Yeah, he's a character, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He reminds me a little bit of Howard Hughes, in his professional approach and deliverance. You know.
Yeah.
I wonder if he was at contact, because it's been contact in the desert recently, hasn't it? So I wonder if he were over there touching base with everything going on.
Maybe. Yeah, absolutely. Any more questions? We're 10 minutes left.
Paul, did you ever go to a mash with Joanne Summerscales when she first started the abductee hotline?
No, I didn't, mate. No, she did contact me a few times, and no, I just politely declined that. Thank you.
Yeah, get in the queue, Mike, the disabled Welshman. I would have thought, trying to get Ross
Coulthard
on your podcast.
To get him on. I'm pretty sure we would. You know, these channels, I mean, we're happy, just like Truth Proof, that the channel's slowly growing, but these are monster channels, and good luck to the guys. They're professional. They're great at what they do.
Well, I'll tell you what, Paul, when we do get round to compiling this sizzle reel or this first episode, once he sees that, I think he'll be on the phone personally. It'll generate
interest. I mean, I've got a picture of, you know, the awakening at this hotel that we're going to on Saturday. Well, there's a picture of me and Whitley Strieber, and ironic that Whitley were talking about an implant that he had in his ear, and allegedly, and this thing moving. And in the picture, I've never shown it to him. I thought about contacting him, actually. You've seen it, I think, Chris. It just looks like a jewel in his ear. It's lit up just at the bottom of his earlobe. And I thought, how weird that he's on about this implant in his ear. And it was his left ear, I think. Yeah. And then we've got this bloody great flash there right against his ear. Strange. But I know that's not a part of what we've just been on about, but I'd contact Whitley and you get on there talking, and that generates interest, because that's quite a big channel.
Yeah.
I just want to put a question to Mick, really. Mick, I mean, you know Paul's story, and you know a lot of it about abduction cases. What do you? I mean, obviously, there's no right or wrong answers here. What do you think is going on here with the abduction phenomena?
Honestly, I've gone back and forth with this for years. I've no idea. These people are selected some way or somehow, and they are 100% believe this. They've had this experience. You go back, Betty and Barney Hill, probably one of the most famous abductions. I think there's a film coming out, actually. So I don't know. You got Travis Walton, another one, but it's just another one of those things that's part of the genre, which is just fascinating. I mean, just as if you're referring to Paul, one of the guys in the chat mentioned it before. Do you think Paul's like the conduit? Yeah, I think he possibly is. I mean, he didn't know it himself. He was a joiner by trade, found himself in the field watching UFOs.
Yeah, never thought I'd be at this spot.
Yeah, look at where you are now.
Never. I'll be honest with you,
Paul, this is just your journey.
Yeah, I never thought I'd write a book. Me write a book. I will always good at words and creating words. I think everybody has the same words. We all do, don't we? But it's just the way you put them together. So I think I can put them together fairly good. But to actually start, I think you've muted. Well, that's it, Chris. To actually start writing, I never thought I'd do any of this. And I said to a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, Mick, I said, this has all come 20, 30 years too late. And the answer I got from this fellow was, no, it hasn't. There's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah, I mean, you could refer to like Close Encounters, that probably one of my favorite films, and it was like that guy, the lead guy, Richard Dreyfuss, and that's it. That was his journey. Whether obviously we don't expect you to be taken up into the mothership, but maybe it's your voice or what. We have had a conversation tonight about a possible project of going up onto the cliffs and maybe doing some real deep dive research
and developing this. Yeah.
Maybe that is the catalyst that brings more eyes on the subject and then opens up doors to whatever this is. I don't know, but I do go back to your question, Chris. Maybe Paul has been kind of selected or pointed out to be, a representative for, normal kind of thinking people.
Voice, because it's a fact that I do get a lot of people opening up and sharing things with me, which I'm really appreciative of, and it's a difficult thing.
It is
the subjects that they talk about. It a lot of times. I know we're short for time, but I'm talking at the Awakening, and I'm using an example of 1998 in one of the slides, and there's lots of reports, and I've got recordings of 3 of the people on those reports. And I said to this guy, who else have you told before you? And this is going back to 1998. He says, no one. You were the first. Yeah. And it just touched kind of touched a nerve with this guy, and he felt like he was confident enough to,
One thing that struck me about you, Paul, you never ever claim to be an expert.
You're not. Who could be?
Who tries to court the limelight, always wanted to be on TV, always wanted to be in the film, in like the newspapers and the media, being sort of this figurehead of the genre. You're just true to yourself. That's got to be commended. And maybe that's the reason why you're here tonight in that chair, recounting people's stories, because when you speak to people, they believe in you.
Well, thanks, and I hope that's what they think. And it's almost like tonight. I said on Blaze TV tonight at 9. I had a clue what I'm talking about, and I only know that because the guy who's making the program, it's Andy McGrath, Chris, isn't it? And what's his name? Film cameraman? Is it? I can't remember. Sorry about that if you're watching this, but he said you're on TV tonight. Matt. But I know a lot of people that have been looking and saying, when am I on? And I want to let me post this link all over social media. It's like I've done work for History Channel. I think I've said it an handful of times. It's just people in chat. You guys are just as important as anything in this subject to me.
I think Mick's right. I think that's why all this not going under ready, not been doing it deliberately, but I think in some respects you've missed the trick. But that could be all part of, we'll say, take Hummingbee. Right? Yeah. Let's say Hummingbee develops, you get more information, the documentary gets made, blah blah blah. That is an amazing case. That could be some, one of these guys like Ross Coulthard or Jeremy Corbell, or George. I mean, George, you spoke to him many times. So it could just be that's all that's required. Maybe it's just to kick it into orbit. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Nick,
I agree.
If you want that.
I mean, Hummingbee is up there as probably one of my top 3 accounts. I mean, we know a bit more than what's gone on there, and it's just fascinating, that whole thing. I mean, if you were a filmmaker and you had the budget, you can make something absolutely epic
Yeah,
with that account. It's just
absolutely. It's got all ingredients. And when we had Nick on Truth Proof on Sunday night, I mean, I learned things that I didn't know about. You know, he were coming out with things that his dad, the boss, and other fella Dave had never spoke about. And they're not. It's just that there's that much to it, and there's so many things to it. And then I went to Hummonby. I know we're short of time. I went there in week. I went to Flixton. Incidentally, I met Steve Collins, who was in chat quite by chance up in Flixton Woods, and I was walking around there with my daughter. And on the way back after we'd dropped one of Laura's kids off, which thank God. I'm sorry if I say I've just had enough of them. No, they were great, but I was glad to say goodbye. So, and on the way back, I called at Hummonby. Parked up, had a walk round, got talking to a lady who was walking a dog. Whether she's read the Truth Proof book, she didn't know. Well, she said she'd never read it. She didn't know out about me. But I was talking about the unit, and she said, you know, in the fields at the back, a flying saucer landed, a UFO. And I'm thinking, is this somebody who's read about this story that I've written about, or is there another element to this? I don't know. She took my number and she said she's going to speak to the people who told her, and that's just another little ingredient. And it's possible that they've just read this story and that's all it is. Yeah. But that would be fascinating if there's another account there, you know.
Yeah, anyway, for sure.
There you go.
Last few minutes, Mick. Anything you want to bring up?
No, not really. I mean, I've really enjoyed it tonight. I just want to really sort of commend you two and what you do with Les as well, Paul.
Yeah.
I know the hard work you guys put into it, and I'm really glad that you've rebooted Last Transmission. I know I've had a conversation with you before, Chris, about when are you going to do it, when you're going to do it. It's good. I'm glad that we're here now and it's happening. And I like to see how you guys progress with your subscribers and, you know, and how the channel grows, and you deserve it, the pair of you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And on Thursday, all being well, we will have a Truth Proof on Thursday. I don't think we've got a guest, if I'm being truthful, so we may only do an hour, people. But I've not spoke to Les since Sunday, so I'll see how the land lies. But we will do something.
Cool. Okay. Just going. Is there any questions that we didn't quite answer, Lorraine? Well, I've got a few minutes left. I think we've got everything. Yeah, there was something I was just going to bring up there just before we finish. It was about the Dogman stuff, but just left me now.
Well, okay, just one last thing then, just totally unrelated to what we spoke about tonight, but the Fae. Who thinks that there's some reality to the Fae? Because I'll just keep it brief, then get your views on it. I've thrown it out loads of times that they're not the little butterfly wing things that we see in films. There's something else in folklore and can shapeshift and transform. What if everything we're looking at is a result of the Fae?
May, possibly. I mean, I know we're not in some places of Ireland where I've been quite a few times. That's a really serious subject. You don't mention the name, you don't talk about them. Kind of like the Skinwalker sort of phenomenon as well. So yeah, another weird part of the whole genre, I think. Paul.
Well, if you were tied to the land, Mick, if you were some kind of elemental that, I don't know, lived in a cloak of invisibility, let's say, or in some kind of spectrum that we can't see, and you didn't like who were there or what were there, and you could present and transform into something, even if it's just a not a mirage, what's the word, hologram type thing, and the witness saw something that akin to a werewolf, you wouldn't want to stay there, would you? You'd leave that area, wouldn't you?
No, you'd be gone.
Just kind of crazy thoughts that we're just kicking around here. But
all right then, guys, we'll call it a night for tonight. So, guys, everybody out there that's been commenting and putting your questions out tonight, thank you very much for that. We always appreciate you helping us out. And if you haven't, I know Paul mentioned it earlier, just give us a like and maybe drop a comment in there for us, and subscribe if you haven't. Thanks to Lorraine, my wife, for moderating again tonight, and thanks to Mick for coming on.
Yeah, that's more importantly. Thank you, Mick. 2 hours of your time, appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, guys. So we will see you in 7 days' time, and you know it flies by. So we'll see you soon.